Hello, and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, we've been talking a lot about leadership and culture strategy lately. And I feel like a very integral part of that kind of work and that focus is being an excellent storyteller. Somebody who can present their ideas in a succinct and compelling way to help really master getting that conversation out there, getting that initiative signed off, or getting something prioritized that would be incredibly important for either you, the individual, or for the business as a whole. So we're simplifying today how to master the art of executive storytelling. And boy, howdy, do I have the absolute right person for the task today. Her name is Libby Magliolo, and she has been spending about a decade in management consulting and strategic planning roles, basically building a lot of really great presentations through trial and error, and obviously countless revisions from her bosses. Now, she's a professor over at SMU Cox, and she also runs a company called The Slide Master. We're going to learn more about that in a second. She's on a mission to make sure that no one has to figure out great presentations the hard way. So, I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Libby Magliolo. Hey, Libby.
Hey, Mary. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
I kind of want to geek out because I feel like this is a really fun topic to talk about. Like,
Yes.
who,
It is.
how many times have we all been in meetings where the worst slide presentation was on the screen with a bazillion words, terrible graphics, and you're like, oh my God, just shoot me now. This is the most terrible thing ever.
Yes. And the only thing worse than a really terrible slide that's filled with text is when somebody stands up there, turns their back to you, and then reads every single word on the screen to you. And we've all been in that meeting. And then we think, why didn't you just copy and paste this and put this into an email? Why do we have to go on a group reading exercise together in this room? So we've all been there, maybe even earlier today, we've all been there. So absolutely, it's universally hated, but it's universal. We all see it, and it's really, really terrible.
Oh, it's the worst. And, I bless it because I think sometimes people get so sucked into whatever silo they're working in their organization. And so they just have this natural belief that everybody knows the acronyms you're using on the screen.
Yes.
Everybody understands what the stats are. And I hate to say it, there's so many times where I've been in meetings where people are just so nervous to raise their hand and goes, what does that mean? What are you talking about? Because, you don't want to be seen as the person that isn't on the same page with everybody else, right? And so that I feel like is an important part to just talk about storytelling first. So what makes executive storytelling different from, say, a standard business presentation?
Yes, executive storytelling is a $20 word for how do we make the complex simple. And when people talk about going in front of executives, I think that what they mean by that is I want you to make something clear, crisp, and concise and put the bottom line up front so I know exactly what it is that you are talking about. So many times when we're going in front of an executive audience, we've done a lot of work before we get in that room. And so our instinct is to, hey, let me take you on this journey so you can see all of the hard work that I did. And first I got this data, and then I did this, and then that took us to this point, and then we analyzed, and then we got there. But what happens is our audience tunes out. And so when we talk about executive storytelling, what that means is we flip that. We start with our conclusion and say, hey, today I'm going to be talking about how we saw a 30% decrease in membership signups last quarter, and I'm going to be asking for a budget approval so we can rectify that next quarter. Great. We're starting with that headline. We're kind of flipping things on their head and making sure that people know exactly where the story is going and then telling them how we got there. So it's about making the complex simple. It's also about curating information. We talked about the terrible slide with tons and tons of data and tons of information on it. I understand the intent behind it. I think if I'm assuming the best, I think that we don't want to forget anything. We want to get credit for all our really hard work, and we want to put it all out there so everyone can get what they need. And we kind of erroneously think that if we throw a ton of information at people, it's like a buffet, that people are going to kind of pick and choose whatever they need, and everyone will be served if I just throw tons of information at them. When in reality, that's just overwhelming. That's so overwhelming to an audience. And so when we talk about executive storytelling, we're talking about, hey, I did the hard work of going through all this information myself, and I curated a story for you, CFO, knowing the KPIs you care about, knowing the strategic projects that are on your mind, knowing all these things. I did all that hard work and I'm putting that bottom line up front for you. So all you have to do is consume and then hopefully decide. So we're just talking about making the complex simple and ideally very concise.
Yeah, and I love that idea of putting the big hook at the top, because then psychologically, right, as humans, we then look for the data points that either prove or disprove whatever you're
Right.
asking me to do, rather than
Right.
just sort of, you're helping the human get on the same page with where we're headed, right?
Right. It's you're putting that hook up front. I like to compare the idea of a mystery novel versus a newspaper article. So in a mystery novel, you don't find out who the killer is until like chapter 34. And I don't have the best track record with finishing books. And so sometimes I never find out who the killer is. There's a stack of abandoned library books by my bed. But that's how we often structure our presentations is we build up, we build up, we build up. And we have either lost interest by then because attention spans are short, or people just are lost because they don't understand the context. But when we put the headline up front, like a newspaper article, if you think about a newspaper article, the most important information is in the headline, and it's written in decreasing order of importance from there. So if you only read the headline, which is often as far as I get some mornings when I'm scrolling through Google News and trying to get up to date, you've still got the most important information about that article. If you read a couple sentences in, you've still got the most important information. So it serves the fact that we unfortunately have short attention spans, but it also gives really needed context. So when you are giving detail and data later on, people understand the context in which that takes place.
Yeah. So what I heard there is don't Scooby-Doo your presentations.
I'm going to steal that.
You should.
Don't Scooby-Doo it where you have to pull the mask off at the end. The other analogy that someone gave me that I love is don't IKEA your presentations, where you give people all the parts and they have to put it together themselves, which I really like as well. So no, don't Scooby-Doo it. Don't IKEA it. I'm going to put these things on my website later today. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'll take 20%. So
done.
A little bit about apology language. You and I talked about this offline, and I'm very curious when I think about presentations, what do you mean by apology language?
Yes, and this is something that I'm generalizing very broadly here. This can fall along gender lines. I also see this as something that pops up for folks earlier in their career. I think there's this mentality of, oh, I'm the most junior person in the room, and so I don't know the full context of what has come up before me, and so I need to kind of apologize for this. So many times we'll start our presentations or our recommendations with something like, this might be a bad idea, but what if we tried this? Or, I'm sorry, I don't really know the full context, so I apologize that I'm just kind of coming into this late in the game. Or, this could have already been tried before, so I don't really know if this is going to work or not. And so what we're doing is, before we even get to our idea, we're taking the power out of it, and we're giving people a big reason to have an objection to it. And we shouldn't do that. We often think when we have an idea, we think that ideas are going to stand on their own merit. And in reality, that's just not the way it works in corporate America, that it's often the best sold ideas that are the ones that we move forward with. And so when we do things like that, we would never want to go buy a car and the car salesman says, hey, you probably don't want this car. This car is probably, it's like, it's not a good fit for you. And I don't know, like, if you want to try it, that's fine. If you want to drive it, okay. But I bet you're going to hate it. I bet you're going to hate it so much. So we're giving people a big out. We're giving people a big reason to not buy into our proposal or our idea. It is hard to take that language out. We're having to deprogram ourselves in a big way. The problem with putting the answer up front and leading with your recommendation is it makes you appear confident and sure of yourself. And that's hard a lot of times because we're used to just building up and apologizing and taking the power out of it. But coming along and saying, hey, this is my recommendation. This is why I'm recommending it. This is why it's good for the company. It makes you appear professional, powerful, polished, and prepared. Ooh, were those all P words? That was really exciting that we stumbled into it. But I think we're very used to it, to giving ourselves an out. And in any presentation with any idea, we should absolutely be ready to take on doubts or questions, or if someone has thoughts on the risks, absolutely. Let's have a discussion. Let's be prepared to talk about those things, but let's not take the power out of an idea before it's even left our mouths. Let's let the idea stand on its own merit.
Yeah, I know what that makes me think of is just executive presence, right?
Yes.
Calm, cool, collected, and confident.
Mm-hmm.
Not cocky, but confident. And
Right.
I really appreciate the idea that leading with the answer. So before we go and create that slide deck, what are the 3 questions that every leader should answer to prepare effectively?
Yes. Something to keep in mind always is, do I need a slide deck before we even prepare a slide deck? Because not every situation merits a slide deck. And we want to make sure that we're in line with organizational norms and executive norms. And if you're presenting to an executive and she loves verbal presentations with very limited data points, or you know what, she wants the Excel model put right in front of her so she can play with it, that's a great thing to know. First rule of public speaking always is to know your audience. And we want to communicate with them in a way that is most effective to them. And it's a way that their communication will be well received. That's what all of us want, is for speakers to keep us in mind. But
Mhm.
if we are at a point and we say, okay, I do need a presentation of some kind, we do need to think about who is our audience. Who are we actually going to be speaking to? The CFO and the CMO have different metrics that they're compensated on. They have different strategic projects and priorities. We should be talking to those two executives differently. We should also be asking, what does success look like for this conversation? The conversation that is a status update should sound very different than one where you're asking for a $3 million budget increase. They should have different amounts of data. They should have different amounts of context. The call to
Mhm.
action should be very different. The introduction should be very different. What do we want our audience to get up and do or
Mhm.
say as a result of this conversation? Those questions should absolutely frame every single presentation we put together. Who is actually going to be listening to this? What does success look like? If you can get those questions clear in your mind, and you can do that in about 60 seconds, it will hugely help how you frame the conversation, and it will inform the first words out of your mouth, because what success looks like should be among the first words out of your mouth. I'm going to be ending our time today with a request for more headcount as we go into our next hiring wave or whatever it is. It clarifies it, and then the audience can kind of take a breath, because then they know exactly what it is that you want from them. They don't walk away thinking, great meeting, but I'm not really sure what the point was. You clarify it for them, which can put an audience at ease.
Mm. So what I heard there is who's going to be in the room, what
Mm-hmm.
do they care about, and
Mm-hmm.
what's the objective of my communications today?
Yes, absolutely. It's also worth thinking about, what do they already know? What's the context that
Mm.
they already have? Because, like you said, many times someone will come in and say, hey, we're going to talk about Project Diamond and we're moving into phase 4 and it's going to be awesome. We're hitting all the stage gates. And you think, I've never heard of this project. I have no idea what's happening today. And so we want to make sure we understand the level of context that people in the room have or don't have. And that's where an engagement question to start a conversation can be really helpful. Hey, I want to make sure we pitch this at the right level. By a show of hands, can you tell me how many folks have heard of Project Diamond before? If you're seeing head nods and hands raised around the room, fantastic. Sounds like we've got great context and folks know what we're talking about. If you're seeing blank stares, then that's wonderful input for you as a
Yeah.
speaker. And you can say, okay, I'm seeing a lot of blank stares. Let me back up for a second, make sure we're all on the same page, because I want us to make sure we all have the same information moving forward. So level of context is helpful, so we're not talking over people's heads, throwing acronyms and things at them that they have no background in, no knowledge of.
And an aside, I do public speaking as well. And whenever I'm teaching a new concept in a room, rather than pitching, for an executive or otherwise, I have found it's so silly. It's the simplest thing. I actually ask, like, hey, what is your level of knowledge on today's topic? Just show me with thumbs. If you're watching the video
Oh,
version
I
of
like
you, you'll
that.
see my
Yeah,
thumb
yeah.
that goes, it thumbs up means that you could be up here teaching this class today. Thumbs in the middle means like, a little bit of knowledge. I've played around with it. And thumbs down means I know nothing about
Yes.
today's topic. And just
Yes.
even that in a workshop setting, not an executive pitch, is super helpful, because I think it gets the group around and goes, oh, okay. we're all about the same place here. And if you're,
Right.
significantly higher or significantly lower, you know how to kind of pivot at that moment and give what they need. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I like that. I one of the exercises I do with my grad students is they all have to talk about their career as if they are going to fifth grade career day and they're going to talk to an audience of 10-year-olds. And I love this exercise. It's my favorite thing in the whole world because I can tell you till I'm blue in the face, hey, Mary, I didn't understand your jargon. I didn't understand the terms. I have no idea what you're talking about. But if I say, please describe this like you would talk to a 10-year-old, it's like magic. People
Mm.
simplify their communication. People take out the jargon. They use things like stories, analogies, comparisons to concrete things. They make it really audience specific. It's like magic. And so often, pretending like you're talking to a 10-year-old is really helpful in an executive sphere because it helps you get all the jargon out, all the stuff out of there. That's kind of window dressing. That doesn't really serve your main topic. So as long as you don't mention like Roblox or Minecraft or whatever in the boardroom next time, it's a really helpful exercise to make sure you're paring down your communication to the essentials and doing it in a way that's really broadly accessible.
I love it. So then how do you balance the visuals and the words on a deck so that the
Oh,
story is actually
yes.
engaging without overwhelming your audience? There's got to be an art to this, right?
Yes, such a good question. So I had this boss, a mentor. He's from East Texas, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't drink water, and he only drinks Miller Lite and talks greatly about his love for it. He's a very colorful character, but in a presentation, he taught me this. He would point to himself and he would say, "The party is here. The party is not here." And so he was communicating that the speaker should be the star of the show. Before the meeting, after the meeting, the audience is going to have your slide deck. There's almost always a pre-read or a leave behind or handouts or whatever, but they only have you for 30 or 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So you need to be the star of the show. I encourage folks to think about you and your presentation like a team, and each of you have a job to play, but you each have very different jobs to play. PowerPoint by nature and presentations by nature are a visual medium, and we should use them as such. You are there for the verbal. You are there to bring the visual to life, to explain how we got to what's on the slide, what we do with what's on the slide, why it's significant, what we do as a result of it. Your presentation should be the visual, you should be the verbal. You do not do each other's jobs, but you work hand in hand. So you should always, always, always think about what's communicated better visually than
Mm.
verbally. The things that come to mind, data visualizations are a big, big one. If I sat here and rattled off, hey, in Q1, we sold 800,000 units. In Q2, we sold 830,000 units. That's a really hard way to take in data. That's a really tough way to take in information. But if I put a bar chart or a line chart in front of you and you can see, oh, the bars get bigger, the lines get bigger. That's a really efficient and effective way to communicate data. So that's a great use for a slide. So I can put the information in a visual format on the slide, and then I can say, here is our last fiscal year results. As you can see, there is an upward trend. Let me tell you about the factors that led to that upward trend, and let me tell you what we're going to do in order to replicate that this year. So think about how your slides can play a visual role and how you can play a verbal role that complements and not duplicates it. Like we said, if we're just reading our slides, we're not adding any value beyond what's on the
Exactly.
slides. So you want a slide deck that is insight forward and has great, clear slide titles and can stand alone, but you also want to play a role to add your expertise on top of that. So you and your slides are a team.
So I got two clarifying questions, and I think this is something that everybody that's listening to us right now has gone like, "Yep, yep, yep." I have definitely been here. One, how do you make sure that you're delivering a great presentation for an audience where some of your people are driving in a car and only listening to your presentation rather than
Ooh,
seeing the slides? And you might have
yes,
people in person, but they're people driving because, like, say it's the daily readout of whatever, a
right,
sales launch. So let's
right.
start there. How do you make sure that the people who don't see the slides still get the information they need?
Yes. Ooh, such a good question. And I feel like that problem has been exacerbated by COVID, that we're all used to
Mm.
taking meetings virtually and on the go. And I've seen more than one person take a Zoom meeting during a hair appointment and, do with that what you will. Hey, I can't hear you. The blow dryer's going. So a couple of things. First, if that's going to be the case, it's helpful to know in advance because we package our information differently. We don't depend completely on a visual presentation if we know that half the folks are only going to be listening to it. In that case, it's important to verbally structure your information in a way that's easy for your audience to follow. Again, we put that bottom line up front. We lead with the answer. Today, we're going to be talking about yesterday's sales results, and the main things I want to focus on are why we saw a spike in the Northwest Territory and why we're having customer complaints here. We're going to focus this on three main things. So you don't have a slide deck to fall back on where you can say, oh, now we're on slide 4. Oh, now we're on slide 5. If you can put kind of that verbal outline in place of, first, we're going to talk about this, then we're going to talk about this. That's a nice guidepost for you as a speaker, but also for your audience. They can think, okay, I understand how they're tracking through the story. And then again, use the visuals to accompany and to augment your story. But if you can't fully lean on that, totally fine. Just make sure that you have a verbal presentation that's helpful for you as well as for your audience so people can follow really easily.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and it's super smart to start to understand if there's 100 people on this readout call, and we know that 50% of them are all going to be stuck in traffic in a car because it's like at 7 to 8 a.m. in the morning, depending on the time zone of where the people are. That definitely would change how I would communicate and present to that group.
Yeah,
Okay, here's
absolutely.
my second spicy question.
Okay.
Let's say, asking for a friend here, you're in a room, in
Mhm.
person meeting. Let's say there's, I don't know, 10 or 15 people in a room and you're presenting a really big idea. And you notice a couple of people are tip tap typing on their computer or checking their phone and just not actually engaged or listening. What do you
Yes.
do?
My first recommendation always is pull the fire alarm because it just like, it resets the conversation and then everyone's talking about the fire alarm and not the big board meeting. Not
Mhm.
really, but I've always wanted to do it in a bad presentation. My answer for this at the beginning of my career versus more recently has changed because earlier in my career, I would not have known how to handle that. And I think I would have just kept talking
Mm.
and dealt with the fact that no one was paying attention. At this point, I would think to myself, what is it that I actually need from them and from this presentation? If the stakeholder that I need sign off from is
Yeah.
typing on his laptop, then at this point, I would be okay respectfully and gently calling out, hey, Jeff, I know that this was important to you, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you everything we need. Would you mind taking a look at this and seeing if you have any objections to that? Gently pulling them into the conversation. I think social norms kind of dictate that we understand that we've been called out, that we weren't paying attention, and that
Mm.
folks kind of snap into place. It's up to us. What I learned in management consulting is it's up to you to get what you need out of the meeting. And so we don't have an excuse to say, well, I don't know what I could do. Jeff wasn't paying attention during the meeting. It's our job to make Jeff pay attention during the meeting. And
Mhm.
I know I'm harping on this, but that's why it's so important for us to lead with the answer up front, because generally we can expect and hope for attention in the first 60 seconds of a presentation. And so if we're giving people a reason to care in the first 60 seconds, we're more likely to keep them for the length of the conversation. Using people's names is really effective, especially in that first 60 seconds. Jeff, we'd love to walk out of here with your approval on this proposal. And you can even start by saying, hey, I know I sent out the pre-read. I want to make sure that we get any questions of yours out of the way. Is there anything top of your mind that we can dig into before we move into the presentation? Bring them in. We should always be thinking about presentations not as like a one-act play that we're putting on. We're not giving a performance, but we're giving people information for a conversation. So bring them into the conversation. Make them part of the conversation. It's pervasive. Everyone is multitasking. Everyone is on their email all the time. So it's our job to, number one, give them a reason to care. And then number two, to actively pull them into the conversation so we're getting what we need from them in the conversation.
I like that. I like that idea of saying right up front, hey, and we're going to need your, decision or your focus, your insights on what we're presenting today. So that would perk my ears up if somebody said that to me at the very beginning, rather than going, okay, I can probably just, coast a little and check my TikTok or whatever people do. It
Right.
drives me crazy personally. It's such a pet peeve of mine because, you spend a lot of time putting a presentation together.
Right.
It gives me the nonverbal cue that you're not, respecting the time that was
Yes.
put into this. So I just feel like it's so important. And sometimes, the reality is people are insanely busy and being pulled
Yes.
in 80 billion directions. And sometimes it is a respect thing, it's like,
Yes.
nah, I don't really have to pay attention, blah, blah, blah. And so it's
Right.
tricky to be the person on the receiving end as the presenter and get that. So it's hard to know exactly what to do there.
It's a tough balance because you can't light the world on fire every time you want to just yell at people and shake them and say, please pay attention. I spent so much time on this as much
Yeah.
as we would like to. But when we're presenting, when we're asking for things, I always like to think about benefit statements. And so if I can make it seem beneficial to you to pay attention to me, hey, I know the last thing we all want is to go through 3 more meetings on this. So I would love it if we could give ourselves a stretch goal of going through this information in 10 minutes, hearing what you think the risks are going to be, and then we can get out of here and hopefully put this to bed today. Make it good for them. Nobody wants more meetings. So if you can call it out, put us all on the same team. Hey, if we get through this, then we won't have to talk about this in future meetings. If you can make it great for everybody, then that's going to be more attractive. And then, oh, okay, yes, I don't want any more meetings. I do want to pay attention and get this done with today.
Yeah. And I also feel like such a best practice and so stupidly obvious to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it. Always, always, always create an agenda for any meetings that you're calling. Because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to meetings where I've just been added to a meeting. I have no idea what we're talking about, no idea of what we're trying to
Yes.
accomplish in that time.
Yes.
And it is maddening. I think being able to put that agenda out gives you, everybody who's invited to the meeting, a little bit of preparation. Okay, this is what we're talking about today. This is what we're deciding. This is the next logical step, right?
Right. And even putting that in your calendar invite so everybody knows the purpose of the meeting is to get approval on XYZ before the end of the meeting. What
Yep.
I need from you, telling people what their jobs are also puts them at ease. What I need from you, I need you to come with ideas about our new email campaign, and we're going to spend the first 10 minutes talking about everybody's ideas. Okay, great. Now I know that I'm not just a consumer. I don't get to just watch the meeting unfold in front of me. I'm expected to be a participant. So
Yep.
telling people the expectations and just being really explicit about these things helps people spend the time efficiently and effectively, and that is what we all want.
Love it. So, what's one simple shift that any leader that's listening to us right now can make this week to improve their executive presence while they're
Yes.
presenting?
Open your presentation in the first 30 seconds by making sure everyone knows who you are and your 1 sentence summary of your entire presentation. If Libby was sitting next to you and I said, hey, you have to sum up your entire 30-minute presentation in 1 sentence. You absolutely have to. Tell me what that 1 sentence is. Sit down and do that. Write that 1 sentence, and then that sentence should be the very first thing out of your mouth when you get in front of a room. We're not giving away the good stuff up front. We're showing people the roadmap and showing where they're going to go. So for your next meeting, sit down and write that 1 sentence summary of what you want to get from the time, 1 sentence summary of your presentation, your recommendation, whatever, and have that sentence be the very first thing out of your mouth. You will be shocked at how polished and prepared and confident it makes you seem and how everybody kind of gets in line because they know exactly what's going on. So try that 1 sentence summary and start with that 1 sentence summary in your next meeting.
Okay, so Libby, it's very clear why you're called the slide master.
I don't know, is it?
It totally is. And so if you're curious about the work that she does out in the world, you can go to her website. It's called buildbetterslides.com. And also
Yes.
you've got a presentation resource hub with like all your templates. Tell us more about what that is.
Yes, I'm so excited to launch this because what I found is presentation training is wonderful, but often we don't feel the need to get help on presentations until we have a really big one coming up. And so we can't, call somebody at 11:45 at night and say, "Hey, it would be a great time for presentation training." And so I tried to put my brain and everything that I can help folks with in presentations with templates and checklists and processes to create a great presentation. I put this all in my resource hub, and I'm really hoping it's a source for folks to get the help they need on the timeline they need. So often, our companies don't provide the resources that we're looking for. I, to this day, have never taken a class on great presentations because it was never something that was offered at any company that I ever worked for. So I'm hoping to fill that gap and folks can get the resources that they need on the timeline that they need whenever that comes up in their life.
That's awesome. So you're giving our listeners 1 free month access to this presentation resource hub. Promo code is SIMPLE. And again, you can find all the resources, everything we talked about in today's episode over at our show notes. So the simplifiers.com, you can find that promo code, click through the link, find Libby and all the amazing things that she's doing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes,
So cool.
I'm so excited for folks to try it out. And please tell me what it is that you want to see on there, and because I love building out resources that people can actually use. So yes, trying to fill that hole in the market.
That's, I mean, incredibly needed. I can think of so many different departments. Like you would think that the communications department is really good at this stuff. But hey, guess what? If you're in IT, if you're in HR, if you're in business dev, and you need to do compelling presentations, you need these skills as well. So again,
Yes.
head over to thesimplifiers.com. You'll find all of these resources and also Libby's social media accounts so you can connect with her and kind of build that conversation further. So, Libby, as we wrap up, there's a couple of questions I'd like to ask you that we ask everybody on the podcast. And here we go. First and foremost, what is one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
Yes, I don't know if you're familiar with the blog/newsletter Evil Witches, but their tagline is a newsletter for women who happen to be mothers. And it's wonderful. When I first stumbled on Evil Witches, I thought I have found my people because they have these wonderful, rich discussions about identity, and part of that is parenting, and part of that is not. So it's wonderful. Read Evil Witches because you'll read it and you think, oh, wow, I found my people. It's just wonderfully honest, funny discussion. And it's very proudly the only paid newsletter that I subscribe to because I think it's that fantastic. But yes, Evil Witches. I'm also reading Dopamine Nation because I'm trying to cure my addiction to my phone. So,
Yeah. Ooh, I'm excited about Evil Witches. I'm definitely want to link
wonderful.
to that.
It's wonderful.
So we'll find the link in the show notes over at thesimplifiers.com. Now, I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
Okay, this is going to sound like a silly answer, but I'm grateful for the fact that I'm wearing pajama pants right now. I'll tell you why. I love what it is that I get to do. I spent a really long time in the corporate world sitting under fluorescent lights, and I remember trudging into the office being sick and pregnant, and I remember being the hardest part of my day was just having to walk in from the parking lot and carry all my stuff when I had to stop and throw up in a planter along the way. And so I'm so grateful for my corporate career, but I'm grateful to have left it and beginning to do something that I really, really love. And I get to teach people and I get to talk with people for a living. And I am grateful every day for that. And what the pajama pants represents to me is all the little things that are important, like getting to eat my lunch at home, getting to pick up my kids at the normal time, getting to wear what I want and kind of dictate my time is so, so, so huge to me. And I'm so incredibly grateful for it every single day. So my beloved Costco joggers are a symbol of something much larger, which is that I'm very grateful to have agency over where and when I work and what that looks like for my family and the rest of my life at large.
Amen to that. I'm into it.
Yeah.
So Let me know. Is there somebody in your network that somebody you know personally that you just feel is up to brilliant things that we could shine a spotlight on them? And who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast. Who would that be?
Yes. Okay. So her name is Kristen Bach, and she runs a company called Body Language Blueprints. And this is the story of how we met. Sounds like it's out in the 90s, but we met in a chat section of a webinar. And so I saw what she did and I just kind of online stalked her and thought, you seem cool. I love Kristen because she's a total delight to talk to. She, by her own admission, looks like Edna Mode from The Incredibles with the short black hair and the glasses. She breaks down knowledge in such an accessible way and a way that you can take and put into action right after you talk to her. So she's the coolest. I'm just a shameless fangirl.
Oh, I love that. We definitely will link her up in the show notes. So
Very
again,
cool.
thesimplifiers.com to find more about what Kristen's doing out in the world. And again, reminder to anyone that's listening, if you're sitting there going, man, my team needs desperately somebody to train them on how to do better PowerPoint decks and presentation decks, you can hire Libby to come into your team and come into your office and do that on-site training, do a lunch and learn, right? So these things are all available to you. Again, her website's over at buildbetterslides.com. So my final question for you today is this, Libby. Someone somewhere is listening to us right now and they have a big presentation coming up in the next day or so. And they are so nervous. Maybe they're an introvert. Maybe they just are second guessing what it is they're trying to present and get across. What's one thing you could whisper into their ear right now just to encourage them in this moment?
Yes. So they would have to believe me when I say this, but the audience is on your side. And I say that because nobody wants to go into a meeting or a presentation hoping that their time is wasted and hoping that the presentation is bad. We all want the same thing. We all want time to be effectively used, and we all want the information to be great. The audience is on your side. Also know that public speaking is among the very most common fears, and audiences have a lot of time and forgiveness for things like your voice shaking, you losing your place, checking your notes. Audiences have a lot of forgiveness for that. So just know that nobody is judging you as harshly as you're judging yourself, and people are there for the information, not the performance of it. So remember that you are giving folks information for a conversation. You're not putting on a performance.
Libby, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful. I appreciate it.